What up, everyone? This is Mr. Lord Dark Professor Dark Joker with this week's video. And this week, I'm going to give my predictions for the upcoming men's college basketball season, for 2025 through 2026. I'm going to go over who I think will win the Power Four conferences and who I think will win the national championship. So, with all that being said, on with the video. First off, I'm going to explain who I think will win each of the Power Four conferences. For the SEC, I think it'll be the Tennessee Volunteers. Of course, Florida's a strong contender, given that they won the national championship last year. And of course, you have Auburn, but Auburn has just lost, Bruce Pearl, who retired, and so yeah. But I think, with with Bruce Pearl retiring, I don't know how good Florida will be coming in, but obviously Barnes has been a very good coach for Tennessee. I think he'll be able to take advantage of Bruce Pearl's retirement and will win the SEC this year. For the ACC, I think it's going to be Duke. Obviously, Duke is a very well-rounded team. Even though Coach K's not there, they've still been strong contenders. Been able to keep themselves at a high level, and I think that's going to pay off this year with the ACC championship. For the Big Ten, I think it's going to be the Purdue Boilermakers. So in the regular season, and Purdue generally does pretty well. They get high rankings to help, which gives them a higher seed in the March Madness. And I think they'll be able to win the Big Ten tournament in order to obviously give themselves an automatic bid. Maybe they probably won't need it, but basically get the automatic bid, give themselves a high ranking. However far it takes with the March Madness, I think they'll at least be able to win the Big Ten tournament. For the Big 12, I think it's going to be the University of Houston. So, yeah. So, obviously the Cougars, they've been a good team, past few years, obviously, famous for, Phi Slamma Jamma back in the day. Of course, it's been a while since then. And, so, they won the Big 12 last year, both regular season and in the tournament. And they could. I think they'll repeat this year, at least in the tournament, with all the teams in the Big 12. A lot of strong teams. I think Houston will end up coming out on top when it's all said and done for the Big 12. For a national champion, I think it's gonna be Duke. Like with how well rounded they are, especially compared to a lot of the other teams. I think, this will be Duke's year to be back on top, big championship for them. Obviously, it's been a little while, a few years since Coach K retired. And, but, I think, obviously their success has not been as much since Coach K left. But, I think they'll win this year, because, they haven't really won one since Coach K left. I think they'll get their first one this year in the time since he left. And that will be a pretty big deal if Duke wins without Coach K. And that's it. Do you agree with my picks? Do you disagree with my picks? Do you like this video? Dislike this video? You can put all that in the comments. You can say who you think will win. Each conference, who will win the national championship. And if y'all have like a full on layout who will make March Madness, I'm not gonna be able to do. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not doing that. A full on 64, 68 team list with the playing games. I ain't gonna do full 68. No. But yeah, if y'all want to do it, you can put on that in the comments or make your own videos and all that. You like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Look forward to the next video.